Picture this. You've won a Heisman, a national championship, and an NFL Offensive Player of the Year, all in less than a decade. You've been one of the most feared running backs in the NFL from the day you arrived, combining talent, longevity, and sheer power to notch more than 10,000 rushing yards in a career that makes you a lock for the Hall of Fame. From 2,000-yard seasons to the NFL's greatest stiff arms of all time, this is the story of how Derrick Henry became the king of the NFL. Derrick Henry was born to teen parents in his hometown of Yulee, Florida, and due to his father constantly being in and out of prison, he was raised for the most part by his grandmother Gladys. Originally, Derrick wanted to leave Yulee to attend Bulls High School, a private institution in Jacksonville revered for feeding talent into D1 programs. But he ultimately decided to stay close to home and put on a show for his hometown. Henry grew up a Gators fan, and his incredible talent on the football field was evident as he started at running back as a freshman at Yulee High School. His junior year, he received offers from various programs across the country, including Florida, but ultimately committed to the University of Georgia, a program that appeared to be far more stable at the time and wouldn't take him too far from home. But in his senior year, Henry had a change of heart, decommitting from the Dogs in favor of the Alabama Crimson Tide after getting to know the program better and seeing the success of other Florida-born running backs, namely Trent Richardson. Henry had the pick of the lot as a recruit, and if you look at his tape or his numbers from Yulee, it's clear to see why. He was basically a freight train in pads at 6'3", 240 pounds, and a consensus 5-star prospect. Derrick finished his high school career with 153 touchdowns on 1,397 rushing attempts for a grand total of 12,124 yards, the highest total ever from a high school football player. His most jaw-dropping performance came against Jackson High School his senior year, where Henry put up 502 yards on 48 carries. Monster numbers from the 18-year-old. But as it so often does, Henry's transition to Alabama proved a humbling experience. He was hit harder than he ever had been in spring football, ending up third on the depth chart behind TJ Yeldon and Antonio Drake. Despite a respectable stat line his freshman year, including marquee performances against Arkansas and Oklahoma in the Sugar Bowl, for the first time in his career, Derrick Henry was having to contend with having a minimal effect on the outcome of games. Add in the fact that he was far from his family for the first time, and it was hard to find reasons to stay in Tuscaloosa. With 3 touchdowns and only 35 rushing attempts on the year, Derrick was nearing a transfer to Florida State until Nick Saban stepped in. Saban explained that he would have a reduced role in the team until he fully understood the offense. He could no longer play hero ball. If Derrick wanted to make it to the pros, he had to treat football like a job. So, that is exactly what he did, eventually splitting snaps with TJ Yeldon as a sophomore, seeing almost 150 more touches than he had in his freshman year, improving to 11 touchdowns and 990 yards rushing. Though Bama lost in the Sugar Bowl to Ohio State, Henry surely had a big role to play in this offense going forward. His decision to stay at Bama was vindicated in his junior year, as TJ Yeldon was headed to the NFL, meaning Henry had the backfield all to himself. He exploded in year 3 with 2,219 rushing yards and 28 touchdowns on 398 carries. He capped the year off with a national championship and a Heisman to his name, along with the Alabama all-time rushing yards and touchdown records, which have since only been topped by Najee Harris. Despite all of these accolades and the dominance that Henry displayed on the field, his draft stock was startlingly low. Most analysts saw him as a late first-round, most likely second-round pick, largely because of his ineffectiveness in the passing game and the insane workload he took on across high school and college. Those analysts' predictions rang true, as with the 14th pick in the second round of the 2016 NFL Draft, the Tennessee Titans selected Derrick Henry, the second running back taken after Ezekiel Elliott. It was a fantastic moment for Derrick, finally making it to the NFL. Yet the person who he credits with being the biggest influence in his life, his grandmother Gladys, couldn't be there to share it with him. She contracted a respiratory illness earlier in the year and was bedridden, connected to a breathing tube which left her unable to speak. Before he went off to Nashville to start the season, Derrick got to see Gladys one last time. They had to pass notes back and forth to communicate, but Derrick says he felt her love and support nonetheless. When he made it to Tennessee, Henry sat behind the veteran DeMarco Murray during his rookie year, and it took him a while to get going. When he finally opened his account for the Titans in Week 8, he celebrated by pointing his fingers to the sky in honor of his grandmother, who had tragically passed away in September. That would be his first of 5 touchdowns as a rookie, running for 490 yards on 110 attempts. Just as he had seen in his freshman year at Alabama, Henry was going to have some growing pains in the NFL, with many wondering if his physicality could actually translate from college. In his second year, Henry continued to split touches with Murray, but this time ran for over 700 yards on 176 attempts while not improving on his TD tally from 2016. He did come up big for the Titans when they needed him most in the playoffs though, helping them beat the Chiefs in a wildcard game with 156 yards and a touchdown on 23 carries. Signs of the game-breaking beast in the backfield were starting to emerge. When the 2018 season rolled around, Derrick Henry was finally named the starter by the new coaching staff led by Mike Vrabel, but by his own admission, Henry did not properly prepare for the occasion. Just as he had when he arrived in Tuscaloosa 5 years earlier, Henry was expecting everything to fall into place, not putting in all of the work needed to learn the offense and be ready for the new season. This became painfully obvious across the first 11 weeks, as he failed to register a game with over 60 yards rushing and had only 4 touchdowns to show for it. These lackluster performances led to him being benched in favor of the more agile, pass-catching Dion Lewis. Thankfully, like any good champion, this adversity only inspired Henry to dig in and search for improvements. Thankfully, he found them, and in a Week 14 divisional matchup against Jacksonville, the Hall of Fame level talent we all associate Henry with emerged in style. It all started when the Jags turned the ball over on downs near Tennessee's end zone. Looking to avoid their second safety of the game, the Titans handed off to Henry, who waited patiently for the play to develop behind his left guard before taking off upfield, stiff-arming Pro Bowler AJ Boye and rookie Leon Jacobs on his way to a 99-yard touchdown run. The play felt like vintage Derrick Henry, the hard-running, Heisman-winning behemoth in the backfield, coming up big for his team in every big moment. He finished the night with a franchise record of 238 rushing yards on just 17 carries for 4 touchdowns, averaging a whopping 14 yards per carry. The following week, he earned his second triple-digit rushing yard performance of the season and finished out strong with his first 1,000-yard season in the NFL. This late-season surge brought the Titans to 9-7, just narrowly missing out on a playoff spot, but with a lot left to build on. 2019 was truly Derrick Henry's breakout season. He led the league in rushing attempts with 303, yards with 1,540, touchdowns with 16, and yards per game with 102.7. This was capped off with a memorable playoff run, where the Titans knocked off the Patriots in Foxborough in the wildcard round, which was the first time the Pats failed to win a playoff game since 2010. They then torched the 1-seed Ravens in Baltimore, leading 28-6 at one point, before falling to the Chiefs at Arrowhead despite going up 10-0 early on. Across these 3 games, Henry accounted for 446 rushing yards, which was over half of the Titans' 867 total yards of offense. He had gone from being on the ropes to the focal point of the Tennessee attack in the space of 14 months. And he had proven, once again, that he thrived under the bright lights of playoff football. 2019 was impressive, but 2020 would be the year that Henry was crowned king. He once again led the league with 17 touchdowns, but this time combined it with a very special achievement. He was once again the Titans' focal point on offense, and despite the opposition defenses knowing what was coming, he managed to notch a monumental 2,027 rushing yards, becoming only the 8th member of the 2,000-yard club in NFL history. He averaged an absurd 126.7 yards per game, with over 1,000 yards after contact on the season and 5.4 yards per carry. This earned him the Offensive Player of the Year award along with All-Pro honors. The Titans were far less impressive in the postseason this year, but optimism was high in Tennessee under the rule of King Henry. And rightfully so. The man is a complete freak. At 6'3", 247 pounds, Henry is built like a linebacker, but his top speed in 2020 of 21.6 miles per hour was the 8th fastest by any offensive playmaker with the ball in hand. Anyone getting in his way at that speed is unlikely to come out on top, but he also combines this with elite patience and vision to offer up a nearly unstoppable package. Even after his mammoth effort in 2020, in which he carried the ball 378 times, there was no sign of slowing down. He posted 937 yards on 10 touchdowns in 2021 before hitting 1,538 yards in 2022 and 1,167 yards in 2023. It was only his rare injury in 2020 that prevented him from hitting the 1,000-yard mark in 6 straight seasons. By the end of the 2023 season, it seemed that the Titans had no choice but to head into rebuild mode, parting ways with Mike Vrabel. Having already looked at trade options for Henry during the season, it seemed that the 30-year-old would be the first and most sensible casualty for a changing of the guard, especially in the current running back market where it's difficult to justify such hefty spending at the position, even for a bona fide star. Derrick Henry ended his Titans career as the second all-time leading rusher in franchise history behind Eddie George, falling just 500 shy of the 10,000-yard mark. Henry tops the chart for touchdowns with 90 though, comfortably ahead of Earl Campbell in second. Now, with a stellar career behind him and a well-publicized ambition of winning the Super Bowl before he hangs up the cleats, who would be willing to splurge on an aging backfield ace? After once again falling just shy of the Super Bowl in 2023, the Baltimore Ravens always seemed just one step off the pace in the postseason, and Derrick Henry appeared to be the answer to their playoff woes. The former Titan also felt an instant connection with the Ravens. Dusting off the violet suit that he wore to his grandmother's funeral 8 years ago, it was her favorite color after all. Many eyebrows were raised at the 2-year deal worth up to $20 million that Henry penned in the 2024 offseason, especially when the Ravens started 0-2. Things started to pick up in Week 3 against Dallas, but hosting the AFC contender Bills in Week 4, Baltimore needed to make a statement. The Ravens got the ball on their own 13 in the first drive of the game and duly handed it to their number 22, who burst through a seam and, at 30 years old, left the entire Bills defense in his wake on an 87-yard touchdown run. Vintage Derrick Henry. This set the tone for a dominant performance, which saw Henry get another touchdown through the air and fall just shy of 200 yards on the ground thanks to a fumble on the goal line, which he says will haunt him for a while. Derrick Henry playing with a point to prove is a scary thought for any opposing team, and with the Ravens finding their rhythm after some early hiccups, King Henry might just get to add a Super Bowl to his resume, the missing jewel in his crown. So, with the incredible career Derrick Henry has put together, do you think he's destined for the Hall of Fame? Drop your thoughts in the comments below.